Okay, everyone, sorry, I'm just going to draw those conversations to a close. Good. I kind of want to hear, but I kind of don't have time. So if I don't ask you, it's not because I don't care. I really, really do. I care too much, and I'm going to smash my time. Okay. But if you don't mind me just using part of the example of what I heard you saying there, Emily, which relates back to this sort of partly around this DC side of the thing around. I was saying I'm not maybe naturally the most natural empath from the D or C. That's probably true, not exclusively. I'm not most because I'm very much more task oriented. So I just want to fix the things to get them done, right? And we all understand that. We often tend to load this into a kind of gender as well. And while statistically it's true that female tend to be more emotionally than it's really not exclusive. It's probably a lot closer than we think statistically. But that's a typical way of us viewing it. Is that women are much more emotional, men are much more logical. To a degree, it's not always the most helpful, but it's one way of viewing it. So this notion of I'm not a natural empath, I want to get the task done. My challenge to anyone who sits in the D quadrant is if you want to get the task done, understand that one of the ways of doing it is not always directly active. Right? If you do want to have your task achieved, be smart and understand that there are actually, if you really want that task to get done, you may have to go through this and understand emotion and walk with it and sit with people to get your task done. Yeah, the quickest way isn't always the most directly active problem. That's a little bit of D stuff there. Okay, good. So hopefully that's what I want you to think about. Really, just think about how you can employ this tool. Usually, this tool is helpful when you're getting met with emotion that's also directed at you. So again, another conversation these guys are having around, well, which I can imagine will happen a lot in your choirs, is when someone was telling you're getting told someone else's problems. Right? I get that happens a lot, but it's not directed at you. This is for when this stuff is directed at you. Okay. Here's a different quick thing. Let's just have to whiz into this, and now if you wouldn't mind just skipping on. This is a slightly different tool that I wanted to show. I wanted to practice, but I don't think we'll have time. But I'll leave it with you because I want to get into this. I want to give you the time in the second part of the session. The second tool I'm going to share with you is around boundary setting. Sorry, can we go on another one? I'll come back to that one. Sorry, Dan. This one, thank you. So this tool is a boundary setting tool. It's really simple. Could you set them up? Right. This is probably if the one I just showed you is about in the moment when you're being met with an emotional response. This would be very much post a response. Right, this is post an event. Right, and this is how to again set a boundary. So again, I'm thinking of the sort of when you're giving so much yourself, it's about just establishing where the boundaries sit. Right? And again, it seems quite similar, but it's a lot colder, cooler. So it reads pretty easily, and it's just about again giving you a little structure to operate by. When you fill that in. An example: when you consistently roll your eyes in choir at everything that I do. Right? Laughter's of recognition. Good. I feel undermined, or I feel undervalued, or I feel you're interested, or you don't want to be there. Whatever. You know all those answers. You can fill that in. So when you do that. I feel like this. I feel right. Like that. Yeah. In future, and again, this is about being assertive and stating what you want. clear on it. In the future, if you're unhappy with this session, I'd really prefer it if you came and spoke to me. Or I'd like to understand what's going on. Get into a question first, and actually that's not a great example. It's a closed question. What would be nice is a nice open question. How does that sound? Tell me how you see things. Right? That makes sense. It's again pretty simple, it's pretty obvious in some respects, but actually it's not the thing that we always speak to that person that's thinking about. It just gives you a little framework to hang. Yeah. Questions or thoughts you have about this as another tool?
So is this something, sorry.
Yeah.
Is this something that becomes more organic, more practice? Because it just feels very cold and calculated and blocking.
You're right, in both respects. So from the outset, yes, that feels quite mechanical, quite cold, that's true. It's also a way of being really clear, I would say, which is when we do what we think is being clear, sometimes we're very capable of muddying it and trying to make it all right. But I didn't think that out, or it's like, no, you're fine, really. Like, you're always working. So sometimes we muddy it with other stuff. And you're also right to say, like any of these things, like anything that we practice, it gets easier to do. And also then you can start to make it your own. So it doesn't just have to be like, oh, you find your own route through it. But as a structure for implicitly saying, acknowledging, identifying the behavior that I see, communicating my response, communicating what I would like to be different, engaging in a conversation about it. That's it. Those are really the kind of steps, right? It's similar to the other one, it's not quite the same. That answers my question. Any other questions, thoughts, observations on this?
Yeah, can you come to my fire and do it for me? Because
I know, but can you do it? This is my thing, it's like, I do have that situation.
Yeah.
And the thought of me actually saying that to that person, oh, I really don't know whether, I just like go, it would just make it worse.
See, I get that. It's easy to throw up on a slide. I do understand. Makes me feel sick when I throw up on my slide.
But the other, but I thought that there was another one, I did the same thing that because it's a giggler, that this person is a giggly sort of destructive,
yes.
jokey, but it's also undermining.
Yes.
So, and
It's
actually that
In my room too.
Yeah. Practice on that topic.
So you're right to say, and also like, yes, practice is, don't practice with friends, colleagues, partners, whoever, away from it. Don't dive straight into it. Right, when you do this, ease yourself in. Like if you're starting out in the gym, don't stick to,
So I guess the assumption is that is going to be negative. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always.
That's true. And we get in the way of this. We have, of course, we are all capable, and of course, being all creative as well. We are fantastic at creating wonderful demons and terrible things that can happen. And of course, rarely does the outcome match the terrible things that we can create for ourselves in our minds. That's not a guarantee, but rarely.
With role models, would you prefer face to face, or do you think it can work in a cowardly email?
It can work in a cowardly email, and at the same time, I think you can do it face to face.
Sometimes it is misconstrued on any form of written anything.
Because basically you're
rehearse and then
you can do that, of course. Absolutely. But you draw loads of information, loads of other visual, non-verbal information.
No one.
Yeah.
gonna train on that on Monday.
I had some on the next slide. I came up with some fictitious examples that you might relate to that I wanted to get into practice with, and maybe you can talk through, because I also want to give you a little bit of a break as well now. Because I've been on with you. So I don't know if you these a choir member consistently undermines your session. We've already touched on that one, yes. Frank keeps telling you to pack in the choir job. Local business keeps asking you to do gigs for free. Choir member keeps pointing out errors in your arrangement. Okay, right. So right, so here's what so before I send you on the break, what questions do you have about anything that we've covered in this to this point?
It was a question about actually the difficult conversation. Part of me thinks it's not their responsibility that I feel like this when they roll their eyes, for example. Why am I bringing that? But you know, so and because I was thinking about what you were saying earlier.
Yeah. Just flip it back to the previous slide.
When you roll your eyes, I feel like this.
Yeah.
Or then don't feel like it.
Yeah. Good. Right. So then, right. So there's an important thing in there, and thank you, refers back to what I was saying earlier with Emily. Thanks. Right. It's important between this stage and this stage. You don't turn this into when you do your piece of behaviour, it makes me feel like. And it sounds like I'm being clever with words, and I'm really not at all. I'm really drawing a distinction, saying when you do this, I feel this. You can replace I feel with I think if you want. That's easy as well, by the way. But it's important not to get into cause and effect, right? This is happening. I feel this. I'd like this not to be the case. What do you think? And of course, if I wouldn't get over it, then it's up to you, right? And of course, then what's nice is that these two models that I've shared with you, you can interlink if you wish. Good again, which is go, okay, oh, sounds like I might have triggered something for you. Sounds like you're a bit fun, I guess, somewhere along the line. Okay, tell me what's going on. So on that, this is the difference is if you don't acknowledge this bit, you go like when you do that behaviour in choir, can you not do it? Now, I'm not. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you can. And sometimes it might still work, right? At the same time, it has limited value. Right? If you keep on saying, hey, when you do this, can you stop doing it? Right? Sometimes that can work, but it won't, it's not always going to work because some people get upset along the way. This is just, don't forget, this is about setting the boundary. It's about expectations. If stuff is happening in your life or anywhere else in your life rather than wasn't happening, here's a framework for you to clearly state what you would like to happen or to not happen. Right? And then you get into the conversation. Unless you set a boundary, people will always transgress it because they won't know it. So some people might very responsibly say in response to this, oh, I'm really sorry, no, what was I doing? I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry. Some people will say, well, what's wrong? Get over it as well. That might also happen. But it's not, again, it's not balancing. But it is a way of stating. And actually, we're all implicitly pretty bad usually at fairly non-judgmentally stating what we would like in life. We're all pretty bad at that, including myself. It's not always an easy thing to do, because we've always got worryable things. Yeah? But here's a framework that can allow those conversations to happen in a relatively pain-free way, and usually the key to it is around clarity. But when I take this into businesses, this is closely associated with feedback model. It is essentially feedback you're offering. The thing gets in the way the most when people are not clear. Right? They're not clear. And actually, having clarity is so valuable, to be honest. It's speaking as well. Right? And especially deep as well. Like you check with the difference, right? If you offer someone and you're really clear about it, they'll think, oh, right, come on. But if you muddy it, what are you trying to say? What's the point? What is it you're actually saying, right?
I think Mel's favourite was get there quicker.
Get there quicker, right? Yes.
So when how does the narrative change when the grievance isn't something you're feeling, but another member has come to you and said, it really annoys me when Michael does that, and you've got to deal with the third person saying, it really annoys Michael when you, him when,
Yeah.
I've got the words wrong.
No,
No,
you're right. Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. So you're right. So you've got a choice. So it's a good point. So you can insert third person here if you feel all right and that's okay to represent them. So when you do your behaviour here, so is experiencing this, and I'm not really have a look at what's going on, please, what you think about it, right? If you're not happy or you don't feel the right person to be like this, then you can just offer it as anonymous other feedback, which is, look, what I've noticed or what I've been made aware of is some behaviour, right? I would like to this not be happening. We'd like to find a way through it. In the future, can we try to address this? What do you think? Right? So here, if it's something that you're in receipt of, you take ownership of it. If it's third party, if you're happy to name third party, do that. If you want to keep it anonymous, keep it anonymous, and just be clear about that. Right? I have been made aware by another person. Who is the other person? They'd rather not be identified at the moment. From my point of view, in my section, this is what I would like to happen. Yeah, so it's a great question. Thanks for that. Yeah, because I know a lot of you talking about other people bringing things to. Yeah,
There's one when they say, who is the other person?
I can't actually remember.
No, it's like you're sure.
Good. Thank you very much. I want to give you a bit of a leg stretch because so we've only got an hour left and I've got a whole massive topic that I want to cover with you. But you very much earned a leg stretch. Take 10. If you have any questions or thoughts or things you want to clarify with me, I'm not going to find me and ask me. Thoughts or revelations about any of this stuff? Models, applications? Yes. Yeah.
Would I address a whole group like with this? Just say, for example, like if I'm student, full rolling their eyes at me, could I address it as a whole?
You can. I guess my next do is probably try to pick people off one by one, because only because conversations they might have different ideas or different motivations, and you might not be able to track both of them. It's a bit sort of three chess. But you know, if it's a class or something like that, of course you could. You all disappoint me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're all talking.
So the answer is yes, you can, of course, and again, you have some sort of prudent judgment about what's going to be most effective, which really shouldn't be difficult. Good, right, thank you for that. Again, always open to any other questions you have. The second part I wanted to do was around goal setting, and like I'm pretty certain you probably all know how to set goals, right? But it's just an opportunity to just check with you that you're doing it as thoroughly as you can, as effectively as you can, make sure there's theory around that, and also possibly giving you the space to actually, which we don't always provide for ourselves, is actually space and time to actually focus on stuff for yourself now. So, you know, we're all sort of aware of like New Year's resolutions. It's that time of year, and right, how many people made New Year's resolutions that have already slightly fallen by the wayside? right? Why do they fall by the same wayside?
Because there's always an excuse as to why not to do it.
Yep, excuse why not to do it, Anya?
It's the same.
Right? Rob,
Because there's no real motivation behind it.
bigger. That's exactly right. So how do we manage to achieve things that we want to achieve?
Accountability.
Yes, holding yourself accountable, that's true. That's your point. Motivation. Drive. Right. Without motivation and strong enough drive, your likelihood of getting to your goal is severely diminished. Right? Well, in whatever sphere it is, whether it's a personal goal or a professional goal. Right? You know, like who doesn't come out? Oh, I'll just use myself. I come out of Christmas feeling, well, I'd like to drop weight that I have put on inevitably over Christmas, right? Have I done anything about it? Not really, no, because my motivation isn't really strong enough, ultimately. I don't have a real goal, I don't really have a target, I don't feel strongly motivated enough to be a lower weight than I am, and it probably, if I hold it in balance, probably feels like more effort, or there are, as you guys say, there's enough reasons for me not to do it, mainly the liking of food and crisps, right? So identifying motivation is really helpful. So in coaching, for instance, we often use a model, another acronym called GROW, which you can sort of apply to yourself loosely, but the point of GROW stands for goal, reality, options, and will. But when we use it in coaching, the place that we spend the most time on is goal. And it's not just saying, what's my goal? I want to run a marathon. Okay, well, I've done the goal. Tick, move on. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Just don't understand about it. So when you're creating, when you're identifying a goal for yourself, what you need to understand is what underlines it. And so when we're talking in coaching about questions about goal, understanding the goal, it's not just identifying the goal, it's understanding everything around it. Why do you want to do it? What's it going to give you? What's the purpose of it? All of these things. But then we also start to really build the picture. So let's say your goal would be to double the size of your business, right? Whatever it is, okay? That could be a goal for you. Questions you've already got to start with are why. What's in it for you? What's that about? Right? Because if you have no, like if you just pluck it, I'm going to double it figure, then what's it going to? What's the purpose of it? Right? In goal phase, do everything you can to keep it positive, and any of those voices that start going, yeah, but ignore. That is not this place for it. Keep it in a positive space, in a motivated space, right? So let's say the goal was to double the size of your business. We'll get into the timings and everything, but at the moment that's the goal, right? So you can say, right, what am I going to get from doubling my business? What sort of thoughts do you have around that? Anything? More money. Okay, yeah. Well,
More money, more fun.
that's gone into the negative. Ignore that voice. Keep it in the positive. Right? What do it mean to double your business? More effect. Good. On what? Well,
Community.
on the community. Brilliant.
More opportunities for the group.
Good. More opportunities. More recognition. Very good. Lots of things that you can already think of, all right? Start to build it. Start to build that. It's a little bit, sorry, almost went into Kevin Costner, but it is true. You know, if you build it and all that. But then create this picture for yourself, right? Then you can start to go into, well, okay, what would it feel like, keeping it positive? What's it going to feel like to have a business twice the size that you currently have?
I'll keep quiet because you don't have anything negative.
No, correct. So,
Yeah.
what would it feel like to have
Awesome, really.
twice?
more fun.
Yeah,
Wow.
powerful,
That's it.
successful.
Successful. Come on, you. A nightmare, okay, so it's a fictional example, okay, so I'm not by any means imposing that on you. But you can all have your own goals in, as I said, personal or business related. The main thing is about creating that positive picture for yourself. What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What will be different for you having achieved your goal to how you are now? Why will it make a difference? All these questions that you can ask yourself. Right? Yeah. What questions you have about that sort of thing? Or if you think about your own sort of goal setting practice, how does that mirror that or differ from that?
At the moment, my goal's just not big enough. It all feels incredibly trivial.
So I'm going to stay out of judgment on those and advise you to do the same. At the same time, your goals are your goals. Do you get to achieve your goals that you set for yourself?
Do I get to?
Do you achieve your goals?
Some of them, yes.
So you have a formula already that allows you to be in part successful. Yeah.
Yes, but if I was to say, I want to add another half an hour to my practice time each day, then how I feel is massively different to how I feel now. I wouldn't feel elated. I wouldn't just feel, okay, yeah, great, it's going. Okay.
And as you go, the why are you wanting to have half an hour extra? Is the result that will happen for you as a form. So is your goal not adding half an hour, your goal is to improve your performance.
Absolutely. What is the purpose of you adding half an hour, a daily half an hour? What would ultimately be the purpose?
Yeah, well, it's an actual period. Which is a pretty big goal. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
It's all out there. It's all out there, and it is all possible. And I don't mean that in a big kind of woo way.
Yeah.
It is right. And any of this, I mean, you can like there's any number of books around this. I love this one by Matthew Said that I love called Bounce, which is the whole 10,000 hour theory. Right, you don't innately get born with stuff. You have some genetic predisposition, sure, but 10,000 hours of practice, 1,000 hours a year for 10 years, do what you want. You can do what you want. Right? If you put in that time, if you're motivated to put in the time. Right? So yes, half an hour extra daily practice. That's 2.5 hours a week. If you did Monday to Friday, yeah, then over any number of weeks, you start to build up those hours. You will get better, but you won't do it unless you have some sort of outcome or goal at the end of it. Half an hour a day or something like half an hour every other day, or maybe it'll be 10 minutes, I don't know. Likely to drift. Not definitely, but likely to drift. It's unmotivated and unfocused.
But I feel like what we're saying is not, what we're saying is not that, oh, international career, that's the goal. It's what's the value of that? Like, are you going to be happy chilling, being away from your family for like weeks and weeks and weeks on effort? You know, is it going to be exciting to be on planes all the time or in hotel rooms all the time? So what about an international career that is the thing you think is, so you're going to get all of that in place? So that you to be motivated, like, sorry, I'm going to do this because I know that's how I that's what I want. Well, again, I'm not very good at that. I'm just simply like arbitrary pin and spots. Let's go there. And yeah, there's no reasons for it.
There's no reason to. Right? So does that make sense? Does it resonate? Yeah. So who is happy to share an example maybe of a goal that they've set out to achieve and have successfully achieved it? Have successfully achieved.
I remember, I think you and I were doing a 5-year, like it was New Year or something, we decided we would write down stuff. And I just closed the book and kind of forgot a little bit about it. And then I went back to it. And because I'd written it down, I don't know why, but I had achieved the major things in it because I was sort of, I don't know whether I don't know. It's not really an example of what we're talking about, but I had achieved the goals. So I was quite really amazed by that. And often just the action, I'm not organised, I don't write down things like this, but when I do, it always seems to work. I don't know what the... I know!
Well, part of that is sort of manifesting as well and making stuff happen, and that can work for some people as well, because it's around conscious awareness of something that's previously been subconscious. Right? So you could have sort of the random thought, wouldn't it be good if, and when you capture it into something that there's conscious awareness around it, then there's a good chance that you may act in accordance with that. Right? And that's what works for you. It's less dependable, but it works for you. That's fine. It is about finding the things that work for you. Any other sort of examples?
Yeah, I did have goals because I was trying to think why I don't have any goals to talk about because I'm just too scared to put something out because I'm quite scared of failure. I was quite scared of success because I wasn't an excuse for why I wasn't successful. Oh, I didn't wish for this. But there was one goal. There have been a couple of goals that I'm really aiming for. One was a degree, and one was with the time with a charity school a few years ago. And I've known friends who have charity schools and told me how very, very difficult it is. And I said, I might get a chance. And everyone said, it's never going to happen. It doesn't happen. I said, no, you don't understand. I want this to happen. And I wanted it. I don't know why. I just desperately wanted it to happen. And we managed to friend produce that we worked with. He was really good. He was really motivating, and we galvanised his quite so excited that they told their energy, and we focused on this really, really tight time scale, and we got everyone's download, match days, and we had a chance, it was only 65 downloads. But I was so focused on it, and I was so tenacious, and I was so compelling to everybody that I met, that I steamrolled, it was going to happen, regardless.
Brilliant.
I had to buy it for myself.
But do you think that was because you had those few people in your head going, it doesn't happen, it won't happen?
Yeah.
Because I would be like you, going, I'm
I'm so wrong, but yeah, exactly. I was to the Maxine Peak, desert this on the way here. I'm going to do that. That was it. And then she was saying it was largely more places that said, you should do an acting course, Maxine. And she's like, really? Don't you? And she's been a bit so ambivalent, she's like, but and yeah, I think that is part of it, it's being told you can't do something.
Okay, so it can be. There's a great, I was just maybe think of one of this great poem my students have on their land course by a guy called Edgar A. Guest, and it's called "It Couldn't Be Done." And it's a fun little thing. You look it up, and it's about saying, "Fine, you say it couldn't be done." Sounds like absolutely, and taking that as a motivation. Absolutely. So again, part of this is about understanding where motivation and drive comes from. And in a way, it doesn't really matter. There is no, like, it has to be this or it should be that. It just has to exist. Right? So wherever you derive it.
I want to client to just have the most amazing experience. And like, we're going to do this, we are going to do it. We're going to do it so well.
Yeah.
And it, yeah, they really, once I told them this is what I went for, I was like, yeah.
Exactly.
Put it out there.
Because you've set the day, then there's a deadline, and as you say, it's a small window, so we
Yeah.
kind of all had to, it was very intense, and that's
Yeah, it was.
really helpful.
Yeah, by the same token, you saying that you put your plan, putting it away.
I think I was
Probably
lost in it, to be
It probably
honest.
gave you less pressure. If you kept having to, I said I wanted to do that, if you keep referring to it, it might put you under more pressure. I don't know. So for certain personality to it.
It's going to work out again how it works for you. Has anyone come across SMART as an acronym for goal setting before you were done? Yes, exactly that. All right. Thank you. Right, so this can be a helpful way again of sizing up. So you might declare. So for me, I might know I want to run a marathon. Probably not going to happen. I wouldn't. Right. So I have to think about. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, which is where I'd fall down. Time bound is the last one, realistic and time bound, right? Okay, and so you can then start to hold your goal, measure your goal up against this. Specific. Why is it important to be specific about your goal?
Because if it's, sorry,
No wrong.
if it's too broad, then what are you achieving?
And so, what's the likely outcome?
It's too easy to muddy it and sort of go, oh, well, I'm not. I didn't
Yeah, it's
really
easier
mean
than
that.
to fail.
Correct. Okay. So to take your example, Rob, for instance, you said I want to become a international star. Right? That's not to say that's unrealistic, but it's not specific. It's not specific, right? So in what, where, what capacity, where would you be operating? Be really super specific. What would you be earning? Who would you be speaking, appealing to? Who would you be working with? Be as specific as you can, right? Again, paint this picture in as much detail as you can. So I say arbitrarily double your business, but again, that's flippant. What does that actually mean? What that is that in income turnover, bodies, hours you spend on it, all of those. Again, be specific, because it's too easy to fail, right? In anything personal, any kind of personal individual progress, right? So that specificity is really, really helpful. Measurable. So what do we mean by measurable? Okay, so being an international star, let's say we've given some specifics around that. How will you know when you have achieved your goal? What is the measure of success of this goal? Well, clearly, if I decided I wanted to be lunatic enough to run a marathon, then the measure of success would be completing a marathon. So that's kind of easy. Or if it was around weight loss, or if you were giving up smoking or drinking, all kind of typical, big generic goals, then to a degree, those kind of, they're quite tangible. It's quite easy to codify those. But when it gets into personal or business goals, again, you need to discover that specificity. How will you know when you've achieved it? What is the measure of success? A, achievable. Is it achievable? Could I actually run a marathon? Could Rob actually become an international star? The answer to both of those are yes, absolutely. They are achievable. I may be completely unfit and incapable of running 1 mile, let alone 26. Is it ultimately achievable? Yes, it is. And that's going to come down to the last point as well. Is it realistic? Well, yeah, okay. I'm reasonably old, blood pressure's a factor, but it's maintained, so I'm not terrible. I can run a bit, so I could actually physically run a marathon with the right training, the right preparation. Okay, so realistic, achievable. Is it achievable? Do that. Be realistic about that. Is it realistic that I could actually do the thing that I want to do? Time bound, the timeliness of it. What time do I put on this? Am I going to run a marathon next week? No. Am I going to run it in a month? Probably not. 3 months? Possibly. Okay. 6 months? Yeah, great. That's a great shout. Okay. There's training programs. Right. So that's just a way of holding up your that SMART acronym. It's just a way of just holding up your goal and just doing a good sense check on all of it and getting into a place, into a position where it actually feels more tangible. What questions do you have about any of that?
I just can't believe I don't do that. Like, it just seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
We don't consciously do that when we record it. A lot goes in my head.
Yes.
That's probably there doing it, right? Don't consciously party out.
Every
It is.
So I just think sometimes your brain is too busy. You don't allow yourself time to think about it.
And it's
And
true.
just survive.
And look, so look, this is true. This is true of how and where we live in the current time for most people. We live in an increasingly fast-paced, busy, no time to stop and do anything other than just do the next thing that's in front of you world. This is true for people in work, out of work, for students, everyone. Right? We are in increasingly fast-paced and driven world. And every business I go to, I can honestly say, and I work in different businesses in almost every week, and I walk in and I'll speak to people and they are just maxed out. Absolutely don't have time to do anything other than just the next thing that I've been told to do or that I have to do. It's hard. I'm not going to pretend. And again, this comes down to the realistic and achievable part. And part of the challenge that we have all as individuals in whatever context and setting we exist in is to carve out the time. Dedicate the time. Even if it's like half an hour a day, even if it's 10 minutes a day. Carve out the time for your own personal reflection, your own focus on yourself. When I do, even like in a session today, I know it will be useful in and of itself, not even necessarily because of anything that I've shared with you, just because you have actually time to think about reflecting on yourself. And I know this when I go into training, I can share any number of ideas and concepts. And actually, the real value is people just having time away from the absolute mountain of work that they're doing normally. And actually, I'd never get time to think about myself. Do anything that you can to carve out some time for yourself and make it really, again, make this specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound as well. Right? I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes to myself every day. Right? That's specific. That's measurable. Is it achievable? Only you know that. Is it realistic? Will you do it? It's timeliness. How long for? Right? Or find something that is. Or I mean, do you know? I will find an hour for myself on a weekend, once a fortnight, whatever it is. Go do it. Right? That's the first base of any of this goal setting. That's the first base. Carve out the time for yourself. Fight for it, defend it with everything, stick to it. Because other than that, and that's not to say, Anya, and I totally get it, when you say I carry so many things, I'm similar, I carry so many things in my head. I don't often do the things that I share with people. I try to, but I don't always, I don't often spend the time of saying, noting down, writing down the things that I want to do. I carry a lot up here. And so, and it still comes down to motivation, because some things I manage, some things I don't, blah, 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 blah. If you want something to happen, this is the way that it's going to happen. Or it's going to be the beginning. Carve out that time, fight for it, defend it. Use it to reflect. Then you can start to build your world out from that. What do I want? And I love it's really, your candor around it, is true, and it's true for many people as well. I can't remember who famously said it, it's definitely not my own, but it's not always failure that we're always afraid of, it can often be success. What does it mean to actually, I don't necessarily want to put that. Right? We're almost fearful of achieving that thing. As well, or at least aiming for the thing and then having to deal with the failure of not achieving.
That's why I have very few goals, because I'm too scared to my goals months and say this is what I want. Because if I don't make it, then I told everybody that's what I want. Yeah. And I don't fail at things.
Yeah. I can do that. I don't want to be that person.
It's true. And it's really honest. It's true. And and I don't, those of you who have children, will recognise this. And our daughter's just gone through GCSEs last year, and you'll be aware. Maybe you're going from your own school, of course. If I don't try, then it doesn't really matter if I do a crap job at these schools, because nothing invested, nothing gained, it didn't matter because I'm okay to put anything into it. And I know that there are a lot of children around our age, who will say, "So, I didn't even bother. advise for about 10 minutes, because it's just protection against the notion of failure. Of course, we know this. And of course, knowing this, of course, what would you advise your own children or your own friends to do? You said, well, go for it.
Everything.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
I said, it's required, go for it.
There you go. Right. So, and of course, and I can, and I recognise it. I can stand here and say the same thing as well. Absolutely. And, I can hope to try to do that. And you can, it is possible, because what sits in failure, not that much really. Not achieving what we want to achieve, it's not really isn't the end of the world. There are worse things. And actually, what you may achieve, striving for your goal anyway, may be almost just as good as anywhere of actually the anything.
Sometimes I forget to look, I don't know how relevant it is to goal setting, but I think for me, sometimes I lose confidence because I forget everything that I've achieved. I forget everything that I've achieved. And then that would stop you moving forward to create new goals, or the goals that I've already achieved. That's nothing.
It's good, you make a really good point, and this is why lots of people do use coaching, and it is useful to have another resource, so that if you feel confident you're able to do this on your own, go do it. Of course, if you're not, engage enroll someone else. Enroll someone else, and what I'd love to do, and what I do in all my training courses, is I get people into small groups, so you can hold each other accountable. And motivate each other as well, because then in a really helpful, friendly way, to be able to do that, because it's all too easy not to do it on your own. And you're right. So in a coaching perspective, what I'll often say to people is, what I said earlier: who's achieved something? You all have. If you put your mind to it, how did you achieve it? Leverage that success. How were you able to do that? What were you thinking when you did that? What were you feeling when you were able to pursue that goal? What enabled you to overcome the inevitable obstacles that come along the way? What resource did you have? What did you use? How did you continue? We've all achieved things in our life. We all have. And sometimes we don't often give ourselves the credit or acknowledge the things that we have got to. How long's your business been running? You have a 10-year business. You have 10 years, a 10-year successful business. How many people are in your clients? It doesn't happen by magic. You know that. It doesn't happen by magic. That's something that you personally achieved with your endeavour. And so, and part of that is really allowing yourself to acknowledge that, and then actually thinking, well, how did I do that actually at times? How did I get from 100 to 200 to 300? How did I keep going after 2 years and 4 years and 5 years and so on? How did I, what was it? And leverage some of that, whatever sits within those spaces, in order to allow yourself to move forward with other things as well. And when you started 10 years ago, I'm sure you probably didn't sit down and go, well, in 10 years' time, I'd like to have 400 people in room. Maybe you did, but but you might not have done. You might have gone, just this thing to be up and running past 3 months or 6 months, or more than 6 people, whatever.
Yeah,
you did it. But you did it. Look, and look what you did with unstructured, or not unmotivated, but unstructured way of getting to where you got. Now imagine actually if you did apply some other, etc., etc. What thoughts do you have about any of that? What questions do you have? Because it's easy for me to stand here and say this stuff. So what are the practicalities? What about them? So, and I really sorry, Emily and Charles. I realise I'm talking a lot about fire, so it's not only applicable in those directions. What about in terms of your own yourselves or your own sort of personal goals? What would you sort of draw from that? Pursuing those.
I've got setted for years, like 3 years.
Brilliant.
I think I had a 5-year plan. Hold on, I'm 23 now. I had a 5-year plan when I was 18, and I finished it, and I completed everything that I wanted from it. So now my plan has extended. But I think now my plan, so basically I wanted a PhD, but my plan now has external factors like funding and other stuff that are more in the way from what I previously had, because my master's is funded as well. So I feel like I've been really lucky and fortunate, but just like in terms of goals, like not every year, I suppose, but most years. And I've got minor and major. I have the minor ones like read books, all of that, and then
In musical terms as well, beautiful.
Oh yeah, and then my majors are stuff like get into a choir, get into a foundational, like major is more sort of like career development focused goals. I don't know, I've always done it. I felt like I needed that 5-year plan so I could stick with it. But I think because I'm not a deep kind of personality, I'm so task focused. That like literally a to-do list of life is what I found really effective.
It's very impressive.
It's great. I just was like, you know, when people create diaries and stuff, and like I remember my sister wrote a diary every day and has done since she was 12, which is like 7 years of diaries. And I just like, I tried and I just couldn't. Like, I don't know how people do that. So I just created this diary, which is literally titled "How to Become Successful." Watch me become successful. And then this diary is just like
completely empty.
But it's actually chaos of like all of the things I've been to. But I found that having something like that has been important because I couldn't keep a diary every day. But keeping a notebook to sort of look back and reflect, like your plans of your 5 years, is just to like take and like, oh, I actually did do that. Yeah, nice.
Good for you. It went really, really well done. I love that. To do that. But this is not about saying this is the right way to do it. It's a great way to do it, and it works for you. And part of it is what works for you. Discover that. And yours is almost manifesting what you want to happen without necessarily having to write everything in detail.
But I'm getting to an age where I do need to. So I have started doing it this year. I've started writing everything out. It's really helpful.
I can understand that.
So part of that. So when we use this grow model that I referenced, you know, the goal, reality, options, and will, often I conceptualize it as a mountain, of course. You know, so if you sort of draw a big mountain and you say the peak of the mountain is clearly it's the goal. I want to get to the top of the mountain, whatever your mountain is. You know, how trivial or however amazing, grand, whatever. And you can spend loads of time talking about what's at the top of the mountain, what it feels to be up there, how you would be, how you would feel, all of those things. Often I use imagine one question. If I could imagine you want anything, you could change anything you want, what would happen? How would that be? What would it look like? Keep it in the positive. Then you can stick all your negative boots in the reality. The reality is, where are you now? Right? So if I want to get to the top of the mountain, okay, where are you right now? I'm at the foot of the mountain, right? What are the obstacles? What stops you? What might stop you getting to the top of the mountain? What's your current world look like? Once you've understood that, once you ask enough of those questions around it, or, you know, I'm mixing so many goals and pretend metaphors. If I wanted to run a marathon, my reality is, yeah, probably I could run a mile and no more. Okay, that is my reality. The other reality is I probably don't exercise enough. My diet is probably not good enough. I probably don't have a decent footwear. Those are probably all things. There are probably lots of other things I could imagine as well if I wanted to. Okay, they're not reasons not to. It's just acknowledging some of the things that might be barriers to success. In options, what we create. Okay, so what could you do? What could I do? Use my fictional.
So is that
narrative.
how am I going to get?
Doesn't even have to. Partly it is you. So what if my barriers are like exercise, diet, lack of long-term stamina, footwear or something. So what are some of the options that I could engage? Personal training, great. Buy some trainers, yeah. How do I know which ones to get? Yeah, ask advice. Who would I ask advice? Personal trainer might know, yeah. What else?
Go to people who've done it, you know someone that's built up to doing that.
Great, what else?
Get some advice on nutrition.
Good, where would I get that? Nutrition expert, yeah, what else? What else would I need to do? Sign up for it, might do it.
Do some running.
Do some running, yeah.
When you did it, training for it, blah, 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 blah. At some point, though, running 26 miles takes 4 hours if you're good at it, and 6 hours if you're not. When am I going to give up 6 hours in a day just to run, do 4 hours, or 6 hours? I cannot see that happen. So actually, I might sort of like take the whole goal, it's going to change. Like, I want to get fitter everyone runs, so how about I just do some fun runs, just charity sponsor, 2 miles, 5 miles, whatever, and do those and feel good about it. Running and doing some exercise, but listen, I'm doing it for a good cause. I'm never going to make it.
So that may be true. So part of that again is in the goal identification. What would be my purpose and motivation in running a marathon, right? So it might just be to run 26 miles. So, but right, okay, not a great one, I understand. But lots of people run marathons for lots of different reasons, right? For good causes, for raising money, for in memory of someone, or whatever. Any number of reasons why people do these things. And if that, so again, it's back to identifying the motivation and drive. But of course, if in my reality, of course, is I don't have 4 or 6 hours to do that. Now, most marathon training programs, you don't run the full distance until you actually do it, of course. But then part of the options might be go and find a training program for running a marathon. Then you run it back through your smart filter. Is this achievable? Is this realistic? Actually, the time, etc., etc. You go through those options. You gave me loads of options. You just keep asking yourself more options, more options, more options. In will, the will is okay. Those are all the things. Those are the things I need to do. When am I going to do them? How am I going to do them? How will I hold myself accountable for doing them? What's my time? Okay. If I want to run 26 miles in 6 months, where am I going to be in 3 months? Where am I going to be in 1 month? Where am I going to be at the end of this week? Break it down. All goals need to be broken down. Don't just go, I need to be at the top of this mountain. I can't do it. Where's base camp 1? What do you need to do to get there, etc., and so on and so forth. Have I just all stated, just spent loads of time stating really obvious things?
Yeah, but not how to get there and to achieve. They might seem totally like everyday things, but obviously your experience ways of not knowing how to get to the next part.
Is there flexibility? Do you kind of build in, say you've got a goal?
Yes.
Is it, well, you haven't achieved the goal, you just set a whole new goal, or do you go, I want to achieve this goal, but I am going to be flexible about this goal?
Look, I guess it depends. It depends what it is, and then it really comes down to the motivation. You know, it still comes down. It has to be underpinned by motivation and drive towards it. I think in anything you do in life, I think you should have acceptance, and that would be a watchword I'd offer you: is acceptance of for oneself, which is I can strive to achieve something and accept myself for not managing to achieve it. That's true. Or it may be the case that while in pursuance of your goal, you recognise when I run it back through my smart filter, maybe it wasn't as realistic as I thought, and so I can modify my goal. I suppose that's being flexible. I think to have what might be what you're saying, to have potentially a moving target as a goal.
Also, is it where you set time frame on it? Yes. Because then you don't put pressure on yourself. So, like Rob saying, I want to be an international star in a year's time, as opposed to I hope to be in 10 years' time, then you don't have the pressure. You'll have all the other goals along the way, but it's just, because obviously if you don't give yourself the time frame, you're just gonna.
Well, that's
Why
what's
give
lovely,
up?
that's what's lovely about 5 and 10 year plans. You can make them as dreamy as you like in some senses, because they probably are achievable. They probably are achievable. They just don't seem like it for now. Like International Star next week, maybe not, probably not. But International Star in 5 years, 10 years, definitely achievable. What would you need to do that? What's the program? What would you need to do? What's that goal? Paint the goal, manifest the goal, tell yourself everything about it, describe it, be specific about it, give you brilliant. Okay, what's your current reality? What are the obstacles to you achieving that right now? Okay, fine, I've got those. What are my options? What can I do to try to overcome and overcome those obstacles and those barriers? My will, okay, what's my program? And part of that is, how will I keep going? Let me identify what might hold me up, what might be the things where I was going to go into too much trouble. How will I keep going? And that always links back to the motivation. What is the will should link back to the goal. It's all achievable for you.
Really interesting room, I think, is really fun way. Smart for me is all exciting. I think it all through. Put it in the door, you close the door. So I changed the into so that actually running that someone else knows you said 3 months time you were going to do step. And now suddenly you can't, it's not that you can't fudge it or you run away from it, it's just that there's someone else helping, maybe partnering to keep the council
For sure.
and get it. That's exciting. And then I just think about us as a group, and it's kind of bizarre because you say, you know, if I nail my colours enough, you kind of have, and not just quietly in front of 200, well, 400 people. You said, this pilot music in 12 weeks, we're on that stage of the single, good. And you know, you're very publicly then facing him. So maybe sometimes when the questions come in, can we go over that bit again? You're just like, do you understand? No. I there. So
I know what a dreadful thing that I end up sometimes saying, and it comes out of my mouth, and I wish it hadn't, is that's the least of my worries right now. Which is terrible.
Actually, this is, if we sang this today, it would be okay. Yes, there are some bits that are wrong, but none of the audience will know. Let's just blur over those bits and spend our time on things that are really terrible, not things that
Point though, sometimes I'm looking at where whole concerts together or really good, and you stand there looking at what's happening, and sometimes I just moment and it's a little bit silly because you go for the goal, but along the way you forget to kind of like yourself out the back actually. But then you never end out. You're going. So you're alright, you're alright. Which is why I don't say it's been with us because it hasn't occurred to me that I don't have any doubt. It's my doubt about it. And like the most recent little thing I've done is I started doing singing lessons because I had a conversation with Anya a few weeks ago when we met up, and I was like, I really think I need to earn some more money. She's like, why am I doing singing lessons? I'm give her anti-music what I should, which I really think you should. And by the end of the conversation, it's like, well, you have to do it, and do it. And then I thought, I'm going to see him for weeks. You have to do it. So I put it out there, put it out there. And this is the first time to comment going that time. But I couldn't face seeing her not done it. Yeah.
So that joint enterprise can be helpful. It's whatever works.
Yeah.
You know, for Emily, she can work alone, she can manifest it through a book, which is wonderful. For other people, I know I did a couple of years ago with my best friend. We did a competitive weight loss. Right. I know what boys did. We made it a competition because we knew it motivated us. And actually, because he's been my best mate for so many years, actually it didn't become that it wasn't a competition. It actually just became the most lovely support. Like, I haven't lost that much. Hey, it's all right, it doesn't matter. And it wasn't like, oh, I lost more than you this week. It's like, keep going, no, it's all right, we can do it, hang in. It actually just really supportive and really fluffy and not competitive in the slightest. It was great. You know, so it is about finding those mechanisms that work. Now, we are at a time, what I'd like you to do, because we have to be out of this room by 4:30, and I'm not going to propose him to run right after that. But what I would like you to do is just spend 5 minutes now, what I often ask people to do, while you reflect back what we've covered today. I'd like you to write down or mentally note down 3 things. Something that you will start doing as a consequence of anything that you've heard or seen today. Something that you will stop doing, that may be, and something that you will continue to do, which is an acknowledgement of the already lovely good stuff that you do, which I'm sure everyone has examples of. So one start, one stop, one continue. I'll leave it with that.
Sorry, one stop, one stop.
One start, one stop, one continue.
Start by. I know.
Start by thinking you stop doing something, you stop doing something, continue doing.
Yeah.
Everybody just wave and say bye, Nina. Bye, Nina.
Bye.
Start finishing. Start.
Start, continue. Doesn't have to be one thing, of course, but at least one thing would be good. A stop, a start, and a continue. Good stuff. Keep writing if you're writing. Who feels happy to share anything, any of their something that they've just written down?
So start earning more by working less. Stop saying yes to everything, which distracts me from earning more by working less. And then continue what I started doing of noting down and being accountable for my daily tasks. Therefore, I'm using my time more effectively. Therefore, I'm earning more by working less.
Very good. Nicely linked. Nice. Yeah, hang on.
So I'm going to start goal setting in more of a structured way, but not just, but I've got to the point where I feel like I've achieved everything I can achieve. That sounds a bit daft, but I think there's more I can achieve. Just to think about what it is I want to achieve going forward. So
how will you do that?
Well, that comes to what I'm going to continue doing,
Good.
which is the third one, is give myself more time for me.
Yes.
I have started to do that, hence why I'm here today.
Good for you.
But that's something I'm going to continue doing and actually run that into my life going forward. And then the thing that I'm going to stop doing is not just focusing on what the people want, but what I can give to them.
Yeah. Good for you. Well done. Good luck with that. Go on, Eula. Moving, hopping.
I'm going to start I'm going to stop over-emphasizing and like not doing my feelings.
Good.
But what I'm going to continue doing is the sharing, collaborating, supporting individual businesses are really useful. But we've had that, it wasn't for you, actually, so I didn't.
Good.
So continue.
Use
using it.
people, yeah, use others as a resource. Absolutely, good. That works. Good.
That's actually something that I've realised today, that there's a whole network of people out there that I haven't tapped into.
MDBrunch.
Well, I haven't, and it's, well, it's a bit of a revelation.
It's a very lonely world.
Yes.
It was to me when I never knew any of Wally's until I bumped into Nav at an event, and then everybody's got, and then yeah, changed everything.
Good. Anyone else happy to share? You don't have to, don't feel compelled to.
With shares.
That's all right. Fine.
Well, I mean, I struggled with a stop.
Mm-hmm.
I've really struggled with actually what to put for a stop. Starting with lowering my expectations of others, reactions, and their pace. Not just others, just their reactions, pace, my own safety, and pushing myself to do things outside of my comfort zone. The stop was pushing myself to unrealistic goals. I don't know if that's contradicting my starting. I'm not really sure how that's worked in. I just shut that in the end because I was
Pick that
trying
up
to
offline.
Yeah. And continue thinking of outcomes and
Good. All right. Okay, good. Thank you all for your time and your engagement today. I hope you take something productive from it. We will make the slides. I'm going to let me fiddle them first so I can add in some of the grow smart stuff, which isn't on the slides, but I'll share everything else with you. And good luck.
would we be